The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to today's Gold webinar with special guest host Bill Watson.
Well, thanks, Andrea. Want to welcome everybody to Taking the Magic Out of Writing Winning Offers. This was actually a program that we presented at the Anaheim conference, which was exciting. And many of you may be in the kind of market that we've been in for a while, and that's a market that has quite a bit of velocity. During, about the $100,000 to about $300,000, $350,000 price range, we're in situations where we're always competing against multiple offers. And so we started looking very, very hard at what we needed to do to really reach the goal of showing less houses and getting our offers accepted sooner rather than later, so that we could take the magic out of it and really have a good strategy. Now, the interesting thing about it is this strategy is going to work very, very well when the market shifts again, which we know that it will, and it becomes a buyer's market instead of a seller's market, because at that point, using these same strategies, we believe that we'll be able to negotiate better offers for our buyers as well. So this is going to transcend writing winning offers, whether it's in a seller market or whether it's in a buying market. So hopefully you can all see my screen. You know, writing winning offers starts before showing the very first house. And here's what we learned. We learned that getting the buyer into the highest position of strength in the beginning gave us a better opportunity to show less homes and get our offers accepted earlier in the process. So let me kind of take a sidebar here and talk, kind of bring you up to speed as to what I'm talking about. So when you get the buyer in the car and you get them into a house that they like, that's the wrong time to start trying to figure out what kind of offer to make, what kind of position of strength to put them into. This should all be very, very well determined prior to looking at the first house. And you're going to kind of see as we kind of go through this process just kind of what we're talking about when we talk about the highest position of strength. In our market, contractually, we have a number of different areas that are watershed periods within our contract. One might be the inspection process, the appraisal, as well as the loan objection deadline. It's interesting, in Colorado, we don't have a loan approval deadline. We have a loan objection deadline. It basically says that on or before loan objection date, the buyer has to confirm the buyer is still satisfied with the terms and conditions of the loan, and if they're not, based upon the sole discretion of the buyer, they can terminate the contract. They don't really have to have a reason. They can just terminate. And so, although that's not happening frivolously in our market, they're just not writing contracts and doing that, it is a part of the contract that we have to think about in order to position our buyers for strength. So what do? So the first thing starts with education. So we get them very familiar with the market data overall in our marketplace, as well as specific market areas of where they're looking at. So for instance, overall specific market, what's the high-low average of not just the sale, but I'm talking about the list to sale. So in other words, are homes selling for 99% of list price, or are homes selling for 100% of list price, or 105% of list price? The reason that we have this conversation, and it's important to know that, is because it accomplishes two things. One, what's the buyer really going to have to offer in order to get the home bought? And secondly, what price range should the buyer really be looking in order to be successful? And we're going to discuss a little bit more about that further on in the presentation. Now, the next thing is the review of the contract and the disclosures. So when we get ready to write the first offer, the buyer already knows what the contract and disclosures are. We're not now trying to get into an education process and spending a couple hours with them going through the contract and then also writing it. They already know, so that at that point we're just filling in the blanks and moving forward. And then we are also determining their level of risk. And that level of risk comes in based upon the offer price, the amount of earnest money that they want to put down, What do they want to do with the inspection? Do they, how do they want to approach it and have an understanding of how to approach it up front? The appraisal. If you have offers coming in over list price, how are we going to close that gap in case the appraisal should come in light? And also the loan objection deadline that we talked about and discussed. And then we have lender involvement. So we're not looking for just a pre-qualification. We want a pre-approved buyer. Okay, so this is someone that has gone through the process and has a pretty good idea that they can qualify. And with that, we're going to need a strong pre-approval letter. We want a phone call to the listing agent from the lender, and we want an email to the listing agent. So when we look at this four-prong approach or three-prong approach, it's designed to create confidence in the buyer's ability to close. Now, I'm going to read to you an example of the kind of letter we get from our preferred lender so that you can see how this may position us a little bit stronger. It says, "Congratulations," and then it has the name of the lender along with the company name, "is pleased to inform you that the buyer's name is fully pre-approved for a non-contingent loan in connection with a purchase transaction. While the property yet has to be selected based upon information, a pre-approval is herein granted." Okay? So that's a pretty strong letter. That's one that says they are pre-approved for a non-contingent loan. In other words, unless they lose their job or something really, really weird happens between now and closing that nobody could foresee or control, this buyer is going to the closing table. So this A builds confidence in the buyer, knowing that they've got the ability to qualify, and B, with a phone call with this letter and an email to the listing agent, we are now creating a high level of confidence with the listing agent as he starts to present these offers to the seller. Now, I don't know if this has happened to anybody out there before, but and maybe it's only me that this happens to, but have you ever had a buyer start out with your preferred lender and then all of a sudden about 2 weeks down the road it turns out that they switch and really nobody knows about it. They do it without your knowledge. They don't call the lender they've been working with who's put all the hard work into it, and the next thing you know, you're dealing with a new lender that has to provide a new letter. Well, we had just that. We had a buyer that received a letter like the one I just read to you. It's the letter that the seller accepted the offer on. They went ahead and changed lenders, and here's the letter we got from that lender. It says, "Thank you for giving the loan company the opportunity to assist you with home purchase needs." It says, "It's my pleasure to provide you with an estimate of the loan amount you may qualify for. This information will give you an estimate of the price range of homes you may want to consider for purchase. This information was not based on a current review of your credit. It was based on preliminary information you stated." Now, I'm not going to embarrass the lender by telling you what this lender's name is, but let me just tell you that the wells run pretty deep in Fargo, North Dakota. And so sad to say, this is what you end up with. That kind of letter will not, that just positions you for weakness in a transaction. So make sure your letter is like the first one and not like this pathetic second one, because otherwise it's not going to do you any good at the table. Now, we're also going to, we talked about, right, once we understand how much they qualify for, we have to determine the price range we should be looking in order to make them more successful. So here's what that means. Let's say that the buyer is only qualified up to $250,000. That is the highest purchase price they can go to. And let's say in the area that they're looking for, that the high list of sales is 105%. So they're getting 5% over list price. Well, if you do the math, for the greater success, the buyer should be looking at homes in the 230 to 240 range. Why? Because now that gives them also the opportunity to make offers above list and put themselves in a more competitive situation. Now you'll notice on this slide that I said it's not a hard and fast rule, but looking at a home in the top of the range with no ability to compete will maybe be frustrating for everyone involved. So you can still show them homes there, but you know they're going to have much more success in the 230 to 240 range as long as homes exist that match their criteria and that price point. Otherwise, if they can't compete and make offers higher than 250, it may be kind of tough. So now once we've put all of this together, right? So we've gone through the contracts, we've gone through the market data, we've gone through getting them completely pre-approved, and we understand now what we're going to do is we're going to determine what the level of the risk the buyer is willing to take on. And this is really going to be up to the buyer. This is not something that we can push on them. And so with that in mind, you know, we're going to have conversations that are going to be very, very frank and very, very detailed in order to figure this out. So when we put this program together, we said, okay, let's take a look at our weakest buyer. What's our weakest buyer position, and how do we strengthen them? Okay. So the weakest buyer may be somebody who's getting, you know, a CHAFA loan, which is, you know, part of the grant money with FHA. So a grant money loan. They're limited on the amount of cash they have as well as the earnest money. So what are we going to do? We get them into a home that they like. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to call a listing agent prior to the offer submittal to discover all the nuances. Are there any details about what the seller's needs or wants are that if we have them in the offer, it's going to be more appealing to the seller right up front? We're going to make sure that we have a pre-approval letter, and just like the letter that we did. And I've got some examples also. We're going to have a letter or a video from the buyer, and I'll have examples of those near the end of this presentation. We call them love letters, right? Because what we're trying to do is have the buyer convey to the seller just how much they would really love to be living in this home. We'll have a letter and email from the agent designed to strengthen the offer. So there's always a letter that comes from the buyer where we saw there was a hole in the system, was that they also need something from us clearly outlining why the seller can have confidence in this buyer and the seller can have confidence that this is going to go to closing. Then when we look at the earnest money, maybe we want to increase it, or maybe we want to increase it through stages. Right? So we start off with a certain amount of earnest money in the beginning. We put down an additional deposit after inspection, an additional deposit after appraisal, just so that it continues to build up and the seller sees the seriousness of the buyer. Inspection, major components, safety and health issues only. So we convey that we're going to have the home inspected, but we're not going to be looking for the minuscule cosmetic items. We just want to make sure that the major components of the house that should be in good condition are in good condition. The roof, the structure, the HVAC, the electrical, the plumbing, the sewer, right? A radon test, all of the big majors. We're not going to be worried as to whether or not a light switch is not level or there's a chip of paint in the wall or something like that. We're going to complete the market research to confirm value. So when we're making an offer, we're not making a stupid offer. We're making an offer that we really believe is going to get appraised for that amount and move towards the closing. Just so that you know, over the last 2 years, we've only had one house that came short of an appraisal, and that was actually one of my listings. It fell short of about $5,000. As far as all the offers that we've written over list price, they've appraised. So we've got a very, very good track record on that, and a lot of that has to do with confirming the value. Now, the other thing that we do is we deliver earnest money and proof of funds. So the proof of funds shows that they've got the money. They've got the money to close. It's sitting right in their bank account, okay? And they now have a hard earnest money check sitting there right there with the offer that they can deposit upon accepting the offer. And then I've always said relationships are a big deal. And if you know the agent, see if you can meet with them. sit down with them face to face. You got the offer, you got the proof of funds, you got the letter, you got their letter, you've got checks, and you're there for one reason, and that's to strengthen the offer. And then the biggest part that we saw was the dreaded appraisal. As a listing agent, when these offers come in over list, one of the first things I do is I call all the agents and say, okay, look, you came in 10, 15 grand over list. Is your buyer willing to make up the difference if the appraisal comes in short? And almost exclusively, they all say, well, no, if that happens, we'll have to renegotiate or something like that because they don't have the cash to do it. Okay. So here's our solution. A strong letter from the agent with market data confirming confidence in the offer price. Now, by the way, we did just close a transaction a couple of weeks ago where there were 3 offers on the table. They liked our offer. They came back and said, we want you to make up the gap. We came back and said, our buyer can't make up the gap. But here's our competitive market analysis. We know it's going to appraise. It's pretty clear it's going to appraise. They ended up taking our offer. It ended up appraising, it ended up closing, and it turned out to be a very, very smooth transaction. So here's what we do when we need to do it. It's a performance guarantee for the buyer in an inclining market. Your home bought at your price, or I'll pay you the difference. In other words, we'll pay up to 50% of our commission to close the gap between the purchase price and the appraised value. So this is inserted in the offer to assist in the strengthening of the offer. It's not used in every situation, only when needed. And one of the things that they have to allow us to do is they have to allow us to be able to meet the appraiser at the property when he's out there so that we can give him our comparables to show why we feel that our offer and our value is right. And they of course like that. So we're not there trying to provide comparables to get a lower appraised value. We're showing up to give appraisals in order to shore up our value and validate our value so that we can get this done easily and quickly. I haven't paid the 50% yet, but let me ask you something. Some of you out there may be going, Bill, like you've lost your mind. I can't imagine that you would do that. But at the end of the day, how strong do you think it looks on an offer when I call the agent and I've got it in there that says, look, you let the seller know I'll contribute up to 50% of what he's got to pay me to help close the gap. And you may be dealing with offers where nobody can close the gap, right? So now they know that, if it's for safe math, if it's a $200,000 house and we offer $210,000, right? Our commission's going to be, $6 grand, give or take, but for easy math, $6 grand. Well, if the appraisal comes in at $205,000, we'll contribute up to $3 grand to get to $208,000. That really does help close the gap on the appraisal. So the seller can have a lot more confidence knowing that our offer is going to help him generate the highest level of net equity. And then, of course, in all cases, we request to meet the appraiser at the property with our market study justifying the buyer's offer. So we had that happen. I was working with a single father of 3 kids, Tom, and we found a home that was on the market in a great neighborhood, great school district, everywhere he wanted to be, for $295,000. I did a market study, and I told Tom, I said, Tom, you got to offer $315,000 because there's no reason why this house doesn't sell for $315,000. And so we did. We wrote the offer for $315,000. Our offer is the one that got accepted. We did meet the appraiser with our comparables, and lo and behold, the house ended up appraising for $316,000. This was great because now our seller, our buyer, bought the house for $1,000 under appraised value in an inclining market. So everybody won on that transaction. So here's a sample letter that we provide to the agent. It says, "Enclosed your offer for 1234 Sunny Acres Road. As you will see, the buyer has been loan approved. You will be receiving a call as well as an email from the lender to confirm such and answer any questions you may have. there's so much confidence in the buyer's ability to get approved that they have to leave at the loan objection deadline, and the inspection will only include major mechanical, structural, and health and safety issues. No requests for minor cosmetic items. So let me stop here for a minute. One of the things that we do with the buyer when we are positioning them for strength is find out if they are confident enough with their ability to close based upon the loan approval that they have from the lender. And if they are, let's say they put down $2,000 earnest money, if they are, then one of the ways we'll strengthen that offer is by removing the loan objection deadline, meaning, hey, once we're past inspection and appraisal, there won't be a loan objection deadline. If the buyer doesn't close after that point for any reason, you know, they're going to sacrifice their earnest money. You can imagine how strong that is in an offer, but you've got to find out if the buyer's okay with that risk. Remember, these decisions are going to be theirs. We're just laying it out on the table on what we're going to do to put them in the strongest possible position to be the offer accepted. If they say, "Hey, look, I'm not comfortable with that. I need that out," then that's not a problem. We would not put that in the letter. We would just amplify how qualified they are. Okay, so now we go back to the letter. We have included our market study of the home so that you can see that this is not just another blue sky offer, but one that your seller can have confidence in that it will close. We are so confident of the offer price that we're willing to put our money where our mouth is and contribute up to 50% of our commission to help bridge the gap between purchase price and appraisal should the appraisal come up short. We will be delivering the earnest money, pre-approval letter, proof of funds, and our appraisal performance guarantee to your office today so that you have them for immediate processing should our offer be accepted. Please do not hesitate to contact me with any questions you may have, and I look forward to working with you towards a successful closing. So that's a pretty strong letter, and that comes from us because that's what we want to convey. I never get letters like this from other buyer agents, just so that you know, or other agents representing the buyer. Sometimes we just get the offer, and there's, electronically, and there's not even an explanation of what it is. So taking these extra steps is going to put you in a much better position. Now, here is a copy of one of the love letters. And I think I'll read this for you. It is kind of small, but it says, "Dear John Singer, thank you for considering our offer to purchase your home. We especially love the spacious layout and the color scheme of your master bedroom. Your house seems like a great place to relax and to unwind. We can imagine that if we were in your shoes, you would like to know that your home would be cared for in the future. So we would like to we would like to briefly introduce ourselves." And so then they go through this whole introduction, or this whole thing about who they are. You see the pictures down below, the kids, the dog, and everything else. And these are great because this builds up an emotional type of connection between the buyer and the seller. Because let's face it, buying and selling homes is not all sticks and stones and dollars and cents. There is an awful lot of emotion that comes into this. And sellers that have been in a home for a while, that's a big deal. This particular letter and this particular buyer did get accepted and closed about a week ago. So make sure that you use these. Have them write one out in the beginning, kind of explaining who they are, what's important to them, and everything else. Because, when you do that, then when they get ready to write the letter, they've got kind of a format or a form that they can work off of and make it very, very easy if they have to submit more than one letter or not. So the letter is very important. Now, the next thing is, let's see if I've got it here. I've got a video to show you. This is a video of a buyer. So hopefully this is going to play okay. Here we go.
Bill, it's Andrea. It is not playing on our end. Bill, just to confirm, it's not playing on our end. Look, it's frozen.
Yeah, that shared that with me to do that. So, positioning the buyer for strength. You know, strength of the buyer in many cases depends on the cash position. You see, now we're talking about a stronger buyer now. We're talking about a stronger buyer that not just has enough money for the down payment, but they've got extra cash where they can bridge the gap of the appraisal themselves. For instance, this was a clause that has come our way that we've used as well. The buyer will pay $8,000 above appraised value, but not exceeding $361,000. So let me tell you how that came about. We had a listing on the market for $349,900. This buyer presented an offer of $361,000. They said, look, if it doesn't appraise for $361,000, if it appraises for $350,000, we'll buy it for $358,000. Right? If it appraises for $353,000, we're buying your house for the purchase price of $361,000. That offer got accepted, right? Because that just made so much sense, and they provided the proof of funds, which we always ask for, to show that they've got enough money for the down payment, and they've got enough money to bridge the gap on the appraisal. Now, also check your market for escalation clauses. So the escalation clause is where you say, you know, our offer is $350,000, but we're willing to pay $1,000 over your highest bona fide offer, right? And you think that you're putting yourself in the highest position. Our market started out kind of like in the escalation clauses. Now, I will ask the agent when I call, when I'm asking for that additional information, hey, do you want to see just a best and highest, strongest offer? Or do you want to see something with an escalation clause, what's best? In most cases, they just say, look, give us your best and highest offer, and let's go with it. So we're going to provide the same information that is a weaker buyer with proof of funds, showing the buyer has the funds to gap the appraisal. And look, we're going to deal with the inspection, appraisal, we've already done, and the loan objection based upon the buyer risk assessment and how much they want to take. So with all of this information now, we can get in our car and we can show less houses and write winning offers that will get accepted sooner in the process. So as my coach, Todd Walters, would say, let's go and let's sell big. Now, I don't know if Andrea is back yet. I know that she had to step off for a minute.
I am back, Bill.
Oh, hey, how are you?
Good, good. Yeah,
Good.
I was on a little earlier just to let you know that video did not play properly. I was trying to get through to you, but you couldn't hear me.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Did it play at all, or did it just not play?
It was very sketchy, and we couldn't hear it at all. And eventually
well,
it just
really
kind
cool.
of froze. Yeah. Yeah, webinar streaming is it's hard to play videos through, so.
I'm sorry about that. But so just to kind of let everybody know, you can either do the letter, or you can do a video of the husband, the wife, the family, the buyers, whoever they are, and have them do a video right to the seller as to what they really like about the house. And you can use products like BombBomb to do that very easily, because once you've created the BombBomb video, then you can go ahead and just email it off along with the other information to the listing agent. So as I told you, Andrea, that this particular presentation on writing winning offers is about 30 minutes or so we have plenty of time for questions, if in fact anybody has any questions out there.
Okay, if you do have a question, all you have to do is type in the chat box your question or comment. You can also ask an audio question by clicking the hand icon you see on your control panel. You must have a working mic or be on the telephone to ask a question aloud. Eric Harris says, Bill, can you share your slide deck from this webinar?
Sure. Yeah, I sure can. It's a PowerPoint. So my email is bill@watsonteamco.com. Send me an email and I'll just shoot you back the PowerPoint.
Okay, and so far that is our only typed question and no one has raised their hand yet. So go ahead and do so now.
Well, I can't believe it was that detailed.
Eric says, thanks, Bill. Nice work.
Okay.
And no questions yet.
Okay. Well, if anybody wants a copy of this slide program, we'll be glad to make it available. Willie also has it, so you can reach out to Willie, and he can send it off to you as well. And like I said, this program got great response at the Platinum Conference, and so this is some information that if you take it and start utilizing it, you'll either get more of your offers accepted sooner and quicker in an inclining market, or you'll certainly be able to negotiate stronger in a more settled buyer's market. So we wish everybody great success in using some of these technologies, and don't hesitate to reach out to Willie with any success stories that you might have or anything that might come up that could make this even better.
Before we end, Hugo typed in, do you take the buyers through the purchase and sale agreement right after they sign the VIP buyer agreement?
Yep. So there's a couple things. One is it depends upon how tired they are. Because once I've gotten through my appointment and everything else, it may be, we may be into that appointment for 45 minutes or so. And what I'll do is I'll schedule another time within 24 hours to meet with them and tell them that I've got an educational process that we need to go through now that's going to take about another hour, and that's what we do. And if they're up for doing it right after the VIP, but I only do it once I have an agreement signed. If I don't have an agreement signed, I don't do it.
Okay. And Karen, she says, thank you so much. Excellent presentation and good tips.
Okay.
And that's it for now.
Okay, great. Well, I hope everybody has a successful day. Andrea, thanks so much for handling this.
Thank you, Bill. You did an awesome job. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I believe this officially ends our Gold Group webinar for today. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon.
Take care. Bye-bye.